Okay, so you're looking to get the real story right. Cut through all the chatter, get straight to the important stuff without getting lost in the details. Well, that's what we do here.
Exactly.
And today, we're diving deep into the Black Mafia family.
BMF.
Yeah, BMF. And this wasn't, just some street corner operation. We're talking a major drug trafficking and money laundering organization. They really hit the headlines, around the early 2000s?
Right. But they started way back, like mid-'80s.
That's right. Late 1985 is when the seeds were planted, really. Southwest Detroit. It was founded by these two brothers, Demetrius Flenory, Big Meech,
Big Meech.
and Terry Lee Flenory, Southwest T.
And from Detroit, they just expanded massively.
Oh, absolutely. By the early 2000s, their cocaine network was, it was all over the place. We're talking Georgia, Alabama, Illinois, California, Florida, Michigan, many states.
So how did they manage that? Was it centrally controlled?
Sort of. They had two main hubs. Atlanta was Demetrius Big Meech's territory.
And Terry, Southwest T, he set up shop in Los Angeles. That was key because LA was their link, their main connection to the Mexican cartels for the actual supply.
Got it. And the scale. This wasn't just a handful of guys, was it?
No way. Estimates put the membership at over 500 people. Easily. It was a huge organization.
Wow.
But here's the twist, the really interesting part, maybe?
What's that?
In the early 2000s, they jumped into the hip-hop scene, launched BMF Entertainment.
Okay, hold on. BMF Entertainment. Like a record label. Promotions.
Both, yeah, a promotion agency and a record label.
So was this a genuine attempt at music? Or something else? Because it sounds like a classic front.
Well, yeah, that's largely how it's seen. A way to wash all that drug money, mountains of cash.
Makes sense.
And also maybe to build a kind of legitimate image, get some public face that wasn't just crime.
But they weren't exactly low-key about it, were they? The lifestyle, the parties, hanging out with huge hip-hop stars.
Not at all. Super extravagant. And yeah, they were definitely connected, seen with people like Diddy, T.I., Jay-Z, Young Jeezy.
So, okay, our mission today, then, is to really unpack this whole story. How did BMF get so big? What made them tick? How did the feds finally bring them down? And what's the legacy?
Exactly. The rise, the methods, the downfall, and the sort of lasting impact.
All right, let's rewind. Where did it all start? The very beginning.
Like we said, Southwest Detroit. Late 1980s, the Flenory brothers, they were still in high school.
Just kids, really.
Yeah, and they started out small. Selling $50 bags of cocaine on the streets. That's where the first name came from. People knew them as the 50 Boys.
Right, the 50 Boys.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you get from $50 bags to, a multi-state empire?
Time, ambition, and organization. By the year 2000, so maybe, 12, 13 years later, they weren't dealing in bags anymore.
It's kilograms.
Multi-kilograms. They had this massive distribution network set up across all those states we mentioned: Alabama, California, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, Tennessee.
Just incredible reach.
Yeah. And that federal investigation, the 2-year one, that's what confirmed the scale. Over 500 members nationwide, the logistics alone. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It sounds like a well-oiled, illegal machine.
Yeah.
But, things didn't stay smooth between the brothers, did they?
No, not at all. Around 2003, there was a major falling out. A schism, really.
What happened?
It led to Terry basically splitting off. He moved out to Los Angeles to run his own thing, focusing on that supply line from Mexico.
And Big Meech stayed in Atlanta.
Yep. Demetrius stayed put in Atlanta, managing the distribution side from there. So you had these two massive, somewhat separate, but still linked operations.
Any idea what caused the split? Was it strategy or personal?
Seems like it was largely personal, fueled by business concerns. The DEA wiretaps picked up a lot. Yeah, they had Terry on tape expressing serious worries about Demetrius, saying his excessive partying, his really flashy lifestyle, it was drawing too much heat, too much attention.
A wrong kind of attention, obviously.
Exactly. And just to give you an idea, the government apparently collected something like 900 pages of typed transcripts from just 5 months of tapping Terry's phone.
Wow. They were definitely listening.
Intensely, even as the brothers themselves were kind of fracturing.
It's strange, though, isn't it? Terry's worried about Meech being too flashy, but Meech is the one launching this very public music venture.
Yeah, that's the paradox. While running this huge underground drug operation, Demetrius is simultaneously pushing BMF Entertainment into the spotlight.
So BMF Entertainment, let's talk more about that. It wasn't just a vanity project.
Doesn't seem like it. The sources point to those two key goals we mentioned.
Yeah.
laundering the drug money,
A
obviously.
big part of it, I imagine.
Huge. And secondly, creating this veneer of legitimacy, building a legal business, maybe getting some mainstream acceptance. And they already had the connections, right? Associating with all those big names. Sean Combs, Trina, T.I., Jay-Z, Young Jeezy, Fabulous.
Did they actually sign artists? Or was it just about the image?
Oh, they had an artist, Blue Da Vinci. He was their main guy.
Lou Da Vinci, I remember the name.
Yeah, his album, World is BMF's, actually got a nomination at the Source Awards in 2005. That was, a pretty big deal in hip-hop circles back then.
So they were getting recognition. How else were they visible?
They were all over those underground hip-hop DVDs that were popular then. You remember SMACK, the Come Up?
Oh yeah, definitely, the DVD magazines.
Right. BMF featured heavily in those. But the biggest splash was probably a full-length DVD by the Raw Report, just focused on BMF.
Just on them.
Yeah. It gave this inside look at their whole movement, their lifestyle, and it created such a buzz it actually led to them being on the cover of Vibe magazine, May 2006.
Vibe magazine. Wow, that's mainstream. That's incredibly bold.
It really was. Going from, the drug game to the cover of Vibe. And musically, too. They had that track, Streets on Lock.
Right. Blue Da Vinci featuring Fabulous and Young Jeezy. That got play.
It did. A popular club track. DJs played it. They even shot a video for it, though apparently it never got an official release.
So they were really pushing the boundaries, operating right out in the open, in a way.
You could say that. And people were noticing, not just the fans, journalists started digging. Marshall Hoop wrote a really important piece in 2006, Hip-Hop's Shadowy Empire.
I think I remember that. That was one of the first big exposés.
Yeah, really in-depth for the time. She later wrote a whole book about them, BMF, The Rise and Fall of Big Meech and the Black Mafia Family. Came out initially in '05, updated later.
So the flash, the music, the magazine covers.
Yeah.
It's all happening. But behind the scenes, the clock is ticking. Law enforcement is closing in.
Absolutely. While BMF Entertainment is making noise, the feds are quietly building their case. Local cops had been looking at the Flenorys since the 90s, remember?
Right, before the BMF name was even big.
Exactly. But the big federal push, the one that brought it all down, was called Operation Motor City Mafia.
Catchy. When did that kick off?
Officially launched in October 2003. It was a major 2-year operation run by the DEA and the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force.
What triggered it? Was there one big event?
It was more like a convergence of things. They were getting bigger drug seizures linked to the network, and crucially, they started flipping people inside BMF, informants.
Ah, the inside source.
Well,
Always key.
Always. And then there was a huge break in April 2004. They arrested this guy, Jabari Hayes, down in Missouri.
Okay.
Hayes was a BMF courier, pretty high up actually. They pulled over his motorhome and found 95 kilograms of cocaine inside, plus a load of marijuana.
95 kilos. In a motorhome.
Yep. That kind of seizure that really gets attention, it starts to unravel things.
I bet. So that was a major domino.
A huge one. Then, later that year, September '04, they were listening in on some low-level dealer in Atlanta.
Standard wiretap stuff.
Right. And that led them to a mid-level guy, DeCarlo Hoskins. Hoskins starts talking, points them towards Amari McCree and Jeffrey Lear. Says these guys are BMF and they can move serious weight.
So they start tapping McCree and Lear.
You got it. And the wiretaps reveal McCree is a major distributor, apparently one of Big Meech's favorites. You see the chain, lower level leads to mid-level leads to higher up.
Connecting the dots. And these caps were court approved, giving them real evidence.
Absolutely critical evidence. Then, November 5th, 2004, they pull over Jeffrey Lear. He's got 10 kilos of coke on him.
Okay, another big bust.
Yeah. Now, initially, the cops let Lear go, hoping the wiretaps would get them even more. But Lear and McCree, they lost that 10 kilos, right? So they owe BMF big money. They panic, go on the run.
Doesn't sound like a good plan.
Not really. Eventually, Lear decides his best option is to cooperate.
And he starts talking about Big Meech.
Directly points the finger. Says Demetrius Flenory was the source of the drugs. He also names another guy, Chad J-Bo Brown, as someone supplying coke for Meech.
So the net is really tightening now. They have cooperating witnesses.
Right. Lear, and then this other guy, William Doc Marshall, he became like the government's star witness during the trial. All this testimony, plus the wiretaps, the seizures that built the case.
Can you describe how they actually operated? Moving that much product, handling that much cash? It must have been complex.
It was remarkably organized. The DEA uncovered about 5 main stash houses just in the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
And roughly every 10 days, these specially modified vehicles Cars, trucks with hidden compartments,
Yeah, trap cars.
Exactly. They'd roll up carrying shipments of 100 to 150 kilograms of cocaine.
Every 10 days. Wow.
Yeah, a constant flow. Workers at the stash houses unloaded it, stored it. Then when a buyer was ready, had their transport lined up, they'd call BMF, get directed to a specific house.
And the exchange.
Cash for coke.
Huh.
The cash usually came in bundles of $5,000. The price for a kilo was around $20,000 wholesale.
20 grand a key.
Yep. And here's the kicker. The same vehicles that delivered the coke. They loaded them up with the cash and drove it straight back to the suppliers in Mexico.
A closed-loop system.
Yeah.
Efficient.
Highly efficient. They were also apparently getting big shipments, similar sizes, 100, 150 kilos, through commercial freight containers coming into the airport.
Man, that's operating on an industrial scale.
It really was. So finally, October 2005, the feds make their move. Coordinated raids.
Operation Motor City Mafia reaches its climax.
Pretty much. They arrested about 30 BMF members in those raids, seized around $3 million in cash and assets, another 2.5 kilos of coke, plus guns.
And that wasn't even the total haul over the investigation, was it?
Not even close. Before those raids, they'd already nabbed 17 other members, confiscated over 600 kilos of cocaine, something like $5.3 million in cash, $5.7 million in other assets.
Incredible numbers.
And the DEA estimated at their peak, BMF was moving maybe 2,500 kilos of cocaine a month.
Per month. That's astronomical.
It really is.
So what were the specific charges against Big Meech and Southwest T?
They got hit with the big one, the continuing criminal enterprise statute, the kingpin charge, basically. Plus, conspiracy to distribute cocaine, massive amounts, obviously, possession with intent to distribute, conspiracy to launder money, multiple counts related to specific drug seizures.
Where did they actually arrest them?
Demetrius was picked up at a big house just outside Dallas. They found some weed, MDMA, guns, a bunch of cars. Terry was arrested in St. Louis. Similar story there. Smaller amounts of drugs, weapons found at his place.
And it didn't stop at the brothers. The investigation kept rolling.
Oh, yeah. June 2006, they dropped a superseding indictment, added 16 more names to the list. That brought the total defendants up to 49.
Anyone notable in that group?
Yeah, one name really stood out. Jacob Arabo.
Jacob the jeweler. The celebrity jeweler.
The very same. He got charged with conspiracy to launder money. The allegation was he helped to clean over $270 million of BMF's drug profits.
$270 million through a jewelry business.
Well, the idea is you mix the dirty money with legitimate business revenue. Buy gold, diamonds, make jewelry, sell it. It makes the drug cash harder to trace, obscures the origin.
What other laundering methods did they use?
The indictment mentioned using various banks, money wiring services, trying to make the money look like it came from legit sources, and apparently they also bought winning Michigan lottery tickets off people.
Winning lottery tickets? How does that work?
You find someone with a winning ticket, pay them more than the ticket's worth in cash, your dirty cash, and then you claim the prize officially. Now the money looks like legitimate lottery winnings.
Clever. Sneaky.
Yeah, and the government wasn't just charging people, they went after the assets, too. Big time.
The forfeiture stuff, what did they take?
Everything they could link. Over 30 pieces of high-end jewelry, 13 houses and properties, 35 vehicles, we're talking Lincoln limos, BMWs, Range Rovers, and Aston Martin.
Wow.
Plus numerous bank accounts, over $1 million in seized cash on top of previous seizures, and that massive $270 million money judgment against the organization as a whole.
They basically aimed to bankrupt them, dismantle the whole financial side?
Yeah, completely gut the financial structure. And the indictments kept coming. July 2007, another 16 alleged BMF members indicted in Atlanta for coke distribution.
Did those guys go to trial?
Almost all of them pled guilty. All except one.
Who is that?
A guy named Fleming Daniels, nickname Ill.
Fleming Ill Daniels. What happened with him?
He went to trial, and it's interesting because they didn't actually have, physical evidence of him holding drugs or recordings of him talking drug deals on the wiretaps.
So how do they convict him?
Testimony. Other BMF guys testified they saw him receiving kilos of cocaine directly from the Flenories. Based on that testimony, he got 20 years in federal prison.
Just based on witness accounts?
Largely, yeah. And he also got another 20 years, running concurrently, for a separate voluntary manslaughter conviction from before. Shows how powerful cooperating witness testimony can be.
Definitely. What about Blue Da Vinci, the artist? What happened to him?
He got caught up in it too, sentenced to 5 years and 4 months.
Did he claim he didn't know about the drug side?
Yeah, his story was that Meech just presented BMF Entertainment as a legit music business, and he wasn't aware of the main business behind it, initially at least.
Did he go back to music after prison?
He did. Released in 2011, started making music again, even did a BMF tour with his brother, Calico Jonas. Apparently, Calico had ties to the Crips and Soulja Boys label.
So, when did the feds feel like they'd finally rounded everyone up? Was there a final arrest?
The last major player they were looking for, Vernon Marcus Coleman, was arrested in Atlanta in 2009. That brought the total arrests related to Operation Motor City Mafia up to around 150 people.
150.
Yeah. At that point, the government basically said, okay, we think we've got the entire command structure, all the key figures.
Now, alongside the drugs and the money,
Mm.
there was a lot of violence associated with BMF, right?
Unfortunately, yes. Quite a few incidents, alleged incidents anyway, involving members.
Like,
Well, back in 2003, Big Meech himself was arrested after a shooting at Club Chaos in Atlanta that left 2 people dead. But he was never indicted. Lack of evidence, apparently.
okay.
Then in 2004, that guy, Fleming Ill Daniels, he was allegedly involved in shooting and killing someone named Rashanable Drummond outside the Velvet Room Club after some kind of argument.
Same year, 2004, there were those execution-style murders, too.
Right. Ulysses Hackett and his girlfriend, Misty Carter, found shot execution style. The theory was that a BMF member named Tremaine Kiki Graham ordered the hit because he thought Hackett might cooperate with police.
That's ruthless.
Seems that way. Then 2005 was particularly violent.
What happened then?
You had the incident with Gucci Mane. He shot and killed a guy named Henry Pookie Lock Clark during what Gucci claimed was a robbery attempt on him.
Okay, and BMF was involved how?
Well, Gucci's defense team suggested BMF might have actually ordered Pookie Lock to rob Gucci. Some kind of dispute there.
Wow. What else in '05?
Cops located a fugitive named Duran Gatling, who supposedly had ties to another crew, the Sin City Mafia. When they tried to arrest him, shots were fired at the officers. Gatling ended up dying in prison later.
And wasn't there something involving Bobby Brown's family?
Yeah, that was pretty high profile.
Hmm.
At P. Diddy's restaurant in Atlanta, Justin's, Bobby Brown's nephews, Shane and Kelsey Brown, got stabbed.
Stabbed? By who?
Allegedly by Blue Da Vinci's brother, Marky Dixon, whose nickname was Baby Blue.
What happened to him?
Dixon himself was murdered later on. It just paints a really grim, violent picture surrounding the whole operation.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Despite all that, the arrests, the violence, the BMF story just seems to live on, doesn't it, in culture?
It absolutely
Yeah.
does. It has this enduring fascination. Remember Jabari Hayes, the courier with the motorhome full of coke?
Yeah.
He wrote a book back in '09 called Miles in the Life. Then in 2017, he made a documentary film with the same name.
And Mara Shellhoop's book, obviously. And there are other documentaries, too.
Yep. One called BMF, The Rise and Fall of a Hip-Hop Drug Empire, came out in 2012. And the show Gangland did an episode focused entirely on BMF.
And it keeps popping up, even now. Rick Ross.
Right. His huge hit from 2010, BMF, Blowin' Money Fast, explicitly references Big Meech. That song was everywhere.
Huge track. And then the Star series.
Yeah, Black Mafia Family started in 2021. Produced by 50 Cent, no less.
It wasn't Meech's own son playing him.
Yeah, Demetrius Flenory Jr. plays his father, which is quite something.
Definitely adds another layer. And even this year, 2025.
Yep, the singer SCA released a single just called BMF. It references both the organization and that Rick Ross song. So yeah, the name, the legend, it's still very much out there.
It really is. Didn't some old beef resurface recently, too?
Yeah.
Like snitching allegations?
Yeah, that was earlier this year, 2025. 50 Cent went public, basically accusing Big Meech of cooperating with the feds to get his sentence reduced.
Why now? What sparked that?
It seemed to kick off after Meech was seen in a video with Rick Ross. You know, 50 and Rick Ross have that long-running feud.
Hip-hop politics. So what did 50 claim exactly?
He claimed Meech used some kind of third-party informant to pass information to help the feds in exchange for a shorter sentence.
And did Meech respond?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He hit back on social media, flatly denied it, said something like, "I never folded, never told, never will. Death before dishonor, always with me." Pretty strong denial.
Strong words. So let's talk about the actual sentences. What happened to the Flenory brothers in the end?
Okay, so both of them pleaded guilty back in November 2007.
To the CCE charge, the Kingpin statute.
Yes, and the conspiracy charges. They were sentenced in September 2008. Both got 30 years in federal prison.
30 years, that's a long time.
It is. For running that nationwide cocaine ring, which the feds dated primarily from 2000 to 2005.
And Big Meech is out now, right?
Yes. Demetrius Flenory was released just recently, October 16th, 2024, from FCI Sheridan in Oregon.
What about Terry, Southwest T?
Terry actually got out earlier. He was granted compassionate release to home confinement back in May 2020.
Why the early release for him?
It was due to his health issues, plus the concerns about COVID-19 spreading in prisons at the time.
Did Meech try for compassionate release too?
He did, yes. But his request was denied.
Why was his denied when Terry's was granted?
The judge basically looked at his record while inside, pointed to disciplinary infractions, said he hadn't really shown he'd changed, and that he was still kind of promoting himself as this drug kingpin figure even from behind bars.
Interesting distinction there.
Yeah, the judge didn't feel he met the criteria for compassionate release based on his conduct in prison.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, it's quite a story. From those $50 bags in Detroit
All right, the Fifth Boys.
to building this absolutely massive multi-state drug empire. Hundreds of people, millions upon millions of dollars.
Tens of millions, hundreds of millions probably, and thousands of kilos of cocaine.
Then there's that whole detour, or maybe strategic move, into hip-hop with BMF Entertainment, which brought them fame, but also maybe too much attention.
Very likely contributed to the downfall, yeah. That high profile, plus the internal conflict, the split between the brothers.
And all the while, this huge, methodical DEA investigation, Operation Motor City Mafia, just grinding away for years until it finally brought the whole thing down.
It's a classic rise and fall narrative, but on an epic scale. The sheer size of their operation is hard to overstate.
And that intersection, between the hardcore drug trade and the glamour of popular culture, hip-hop specifically, that makes it stick in people's minds, I think.
Absolutely. It's more than just a crime story. It's a cultural phenomenon in some ways.
It really is. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about that drive for wealth, for power, whether you're chasing it on the streets or in the boardroom or maybe even in the recording studio.
Yeah. The lengths people will go to.
Exactly. It can lead to incredible success, obviously,
Yeah.
but also just total devastation. The BMF story really highlights that edge, that line they walked.
And maybe that's why we're still talking about it. That mix of ambition, crime, culture, and consequence. It's complex.
Definitely complex. A lot to think about there, about the allure of that life, the reality of it, and why these stories continue to fascinate us.